The wait is finally over. After everything we have been through, after every theory, every prayer, every late night of rewatching old seasons just to feel something, The Chosen Season 6 finally has a trailer and an official release date. And I have to be completely honest with you, when I first watched that trailer, I had to stop it halfway through and just sit there for a moment. Because it is one thing to read about what is coming, it is one thing to imagine it in your head, but seeing it, actually seeing Jonathan step into those final moments, seeing the weight of everything on his face, hearing the music swell, watching the people around him react, it hits completely differently. This is not just another season of a TV show. This is the moment the entire series has been building towards since day one. And now that we have a trailer and a confirmed date, everything feels incredibly real. So today we are going to break down everything, what the trailer reveals, what the official release date means for us as fans, what Jonathan has been saying about this season that honestly broke my heart a little, and why this might be the most important piece of faith-based content ever put on screen. Stay with me because you do not want to miss a single word of this. Let me start from the very beginning because I think it is important to understand just how massive this moment is before we dive into anything else. For years now, fans of The Chosen have been walking this journey alongside Jesus and his disciples with a level of emotional investment that very few TV shows in history have ever managed to create. Dallas Jenkins and his entire team built something that nobody in Hollywood thought was possible. A crowdfunded, independently produced series about the life of Jesus that somehow became the most watched Christian media production of all time. And they did it not by making something flashy or commercial, but by making something deeply, painfully human. They made you care about Matthew's awkward silences. They made you feel Mary Magdalene's shame and her redemption. They made you laugh with the disciples and cry with them and sit in silence with them. And after 5 seasons of that kind of storytelling, we are now standing at the edge of the most difficult and sacred part of the story. The part that every believer knows, the part that changed the entire world. Season 6 is the passion, the arrest, the trials, the suffering, the cross. And now we finally have a trailer that shows us exactly how Dallas and Jonathan and the entire cast and crew are choosing to bring that to life. And I have to tell you, it is everything. It is absolutely everything we hoped it would be and then some. When the trailer opens, the very first thing you feel is silence. Not the comfortable kind of silence, the heavy kind. The kind that sits in your chest and does not move. And then slowly, the images begin. And what strikes you immediately, before any dialogue, before any dramatic music moment, is Jonathan's face. Just his face, and in that face, you can see it all. The exhaustion, the resolve, the love, the sorrow, the complete and total surrender. And I want you to think about something for a moment. Jonathan Roumie has spoken in interview after interview about how filming this season nearly broke him. He said it was one of the hardest periods of his life. He said there were days on set where the emotional weight was so heavy that he did not know how to carry it. And yet he did. He carried it because he believed in what he was doing. He believed that the story he was telling mattered. And when you watch that trailer knowing all of that, knowing what Jonathan went through to bring these moments to life, every single frame hits with a completely different weight. You are not just watching an actor perform. You are watching someone who gave everything he had to honor a story that is sacred to billions of people around the world. And that is something you simply cannot fake. The camera does not lie, and Jonathan's eyes in this trailer tell you everything you need to know. What the trailer also does incredibly well is show you the world closing in around Jesus. From the very first moments, you can feel the walls tightening. The faces of the religious leaders carry that specific kind of cold determination that is more frightening than anger, because anger is loud and anger passes, but cold determination is quiet and it does not stop. And you can see that in the way Caiaphas is portrayed. There is no theatrical villainy here. There is something far more unsettling. There is a man who genuinely believes he is doing the right thing. A man who thinks that removing Jesus is the only way to protect his people and his faith and his way of life. And that complexity, that terrifying moral gray area, is exactly what makes The Chosen so different from anything else that has tried to tell this story. They never take the easy road. They never let you settle into simple good versus evil. They make you understand every character's perspective, even when you disagree with everything they are doing. And in doing that, they make the story feel real in a way that reaches into your soul and does not let go. The disciples appear in the trailer only briefly but powerfully. And what you notice is the absolute devastation on their faces. These are not background characters reacting to a plot point. These are people who have spent years following someone they love completely. People who left everything, their families, their livelihoods, their entire sense of who they were, to follow Jesus, and now they are watching everything fall apart in front of them, and there is nothing they can do. Peter's face in particular is something I am not going to forget for a very long time. Because you can see in his expression that specific kind of pain that comes from knowing you are about to fail someone you love. That guilt that has not happened yet, but is already there, already eating at him, already making him smaller. And if you have followed Simon Peter's journey through all 5 seasons, if you have watched him grow and stumble and rise and fall again and again, then seeing him standing there in that trailer with that look on his face will absolutely wreck you in the best possible way. Because that is what great storytelling does. It makes your heart break for people who lived 2,000 years ago as if they were standing right in front of you. And then there is the music. I need to talk about the music because it is doing something extraordinary in this trailer. It is not trying to manipulate your emotions the way a lot of dramatic trailers do. It is not crashing in with big, overwhelming orchestral moments designed to make you feel something on cue. Instead, it breathes. It rises and falls like a heartbeat. And there are moments in the trailer where the music almost disappears completely. And you are left with nothing but the ambient sound of the scene, the distant crowd, the quiet wind, a single voice. And those moments of near silence are somehow more powerful than any musical crescendo could ever be. Because they force you to sit inside the moment with Jesus. They force you to be present with him in the way that the disciples were present with him. Afraid and uncertain and heartbroken, but they're refusing to look away even when everything in you wants to. That is the genius of how this trailer was constructed, and it tells you everything you need to know about the care and intentionality that has gone into every single frame of season 6. Now let me talk about the official release date because this is the part that I know every single one of you has been waiting to hear about, and I want to make sure I give you every detail we know so far. Dallas Jenkins confirmed in recent statements that the first 6 episodes of season 6 will be available to watch in fall 2026. Let me say that again, because I need you to really let that sink in. Fall 2026. We are talking about just a few months away now. After years of waiting, after years of wondering when we would finally get to see this part of the story, the answer is no longer somewhere far off in the distance. It is close. It is genuinely, tangibly close. And when Dallas made that announcement, I noticed something interesting in the way he said it. There was no hesitation in his voice. There was no vague language or non-committal phrasing of the kind that we sometimes get from productions that are still figuring things out behind the scenes. It was clear and it was confident and it was direct. Fall 2026 is happening. The first 6 episodes are coming. And that certainty, coming from someone like Dallas, who has always been honest with this community, even when the news was difficult, means everything. But here is something I really want you to understand about what fall 2026 means in terms of the actual story we will be watching. Those first 6 episodes will cover the arrest of Jesus in Gethsemane, the interrogation before Annas, the trial before Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin, the appearance before Pontius Pilate, the sending to Herod and the return to Pilate that ends with the crowd choosing Barabbas and Pilate washing his hands. 6 episodes, 6 hours roughly of television, covering what is arguably the most emotionally dense sequence of events in all of human history. And when you think about it from a storytelling perspective, that is an extraordinary amount of time to spend inside these moments. Most film adaptations of The Passion compress everything into a fraction of that runtime. They do not have the space to slow down and breathe and let you sit inside each moment the way a series can. But The Chosen has that space. Dallas and his team have the ability to take us into every room, to show us every conversation, to let us watch every character process what is happening around them in real time. And that means we are going to experience these events in a way that no audience has ever experienced them before. Not rushing toward the cross, but walking toward it slowly, painfully, with full awareness of every step. And then there is the second half of season 6, which Dallas has confirmed will arrive in spring 2027 in theaters. The crucifixion episode, the feature-length crucifixion episode. I want to pause on that for a second because I think the decision to release the crucifixion as a theatrical experience is one of the most bold and meaningful creative decisions this entire production has ever made. Think about what that means. You are not going to be watching the crucifixion of Jesus on your phone while you are sitting on your couch with one eye on something else. You are going to be in a theater, in the dark, surrounded by other people, with a massive screen in front of you and sound that fills the entire room. And there is something profoundly right about that. There is something that feels almost liturgical about gathering together in a darkened room to witness this story collectively. Because that is what this moment has always been. It has always been something meant to be witnessed together. And the fact that Dallas had the vision and the courage to make that choice tells you how seriously this team takes the weight of what they are putting on screen. Now, I also want to talk about something that the trailer reveals in terms of tone that I think is really important and that I do not think enough people are discussing, because there is a conversation that happens in faith communities, sometimes about how to portray the suffering of Jesus. Some people feel that it should be shown in its full, brutal reality. Nothing held back. Every wound and every blow depicted with complete honesty, because that is what he actually endured, and softening it dishonors the sacrifice. And then there are others who feel that the focus should be more on the spiritual and emotional reality of the passion rather than the physical suffering, because the meaning of what happened transcends the physical details. And what I see in this trailer is Dallas and Jonathan finding a third path that somehow honors both of those perspectives at once. The suffering is not hidden. You can feel it. You can see it in Jonathan's body language and in the way certain scenes are framed. But it is never gratuitous. It is never suffering for the sake of shock or spectacle. Every moment of pain in this trailer feels purposeful. It feels like it is in service of something deeper. And that balance, that incredibly difficult balance, is something that very few filmmakers have ever managed to achieve when telling this particular story. What also stands out in the trailer is how much attention has been paid to the secondary characters and what is happening to them while Jesus moves through his trials. Because one of the things The Chosen has always done better than almost any other adaptation is remind you that every person in this story is a fully realized human being with their own fears and hopes and contradictions. And in season 6, that becomes more important than ever, because the people around Jesus are all facing their own impossible moments. The disciples are scattering and regrouping and falling apart and finding each other again. The women who have followed Jesus are watching from a distance with hearts that are breaking in ways that no words can fully capture. Even the people on the opposing side, Pilate torn between his conscience and his political survival. The members of the Sanhedrin wrestling with doubt even as they push forward. Judas carrying the unbearable weight of what he has set in motion. Every single one of these stories is happening simultaneously, and the trailer gives you glimpses of all of them, and each glimpse makes you desperate to see more. That is the mark of a trailer that has been put together with real craft and real understanding of what makes this particular story so endlessly powerful. And I want to come back to Jonathan one more time in this section, because I keep returning to something he said in a recent interview that I cannot get out of my head. He talked about how, during the most difficult days of filming, when the physical and emotional demands of the role felt like they were exceeding what he was capable of giving, he found his way through by asking himself a simple question. What would Jesus do in this moment? Not as a cliche, not as a bumper sticker phrase, but as a genuine spiritual practice, as a way of centering himself and remembering why he was there and what he was trying to honor. And he said that every time he asked that question sincerely, something shifted inside him. Some reserve of strength and peace that he did not know he had would become available to him. And he was able to continue. He was able to get back in front of the camera and give everything he had one more time. And when I think about that, when I think about an actor using the teachings of the character he is playing as a genuine source of strength in his real life, I feel something that is very hard to put into words. But it makes me more certain than ever that what we are going to watch in season 6 is not just great television. It is something that carried a real cost. Something that was paid for with real sacrifice. And that makes it sacred in a way that goes beyond anything I can adequately explain. Now I want to take a step back from the trailer for a moment and talk about something that I think adds an enormous amount of meaning to everything we are about to watch. And that is the journey that brought us here. Because I do not think we can fully appreciate what season 6 represents without understanding what this entire production has had to overcome just to exist. When Dallas Jenkins first started The Chosen, he was not working with a major studio. He was not backed by a Hollywood distribution deal or a streaming giant with unlimited resources. He was working with a community, with real people who believed in what he was trying to do and who gave what they could because they wanted this story told in this way. The first episode was funded through a vigil crowdfunding campaign that broke records. And from that single episode, something extraordinary began to grow. Not because of marketing, not because of celebrity endorsements or algorithmic promotion, but because people watched it and felt something real and immediately wanted the people they loved to feel it too. They shared it. They talked about it. They organized watch parties in living rooms and church halls and community centers. They pressed it into the hands of friends and family members who had never shown any interest in faith-based content before and said, just watch the first episode and then tell me what you think. And those people watched it and they felt it too. And they shared it further. And that is how The Chosen became what it is today. Not through the machinery of the entertainment industry, but through the oldest and most powerful distribution system in human history. People telling other people about something that moved them deeply and understanding that origin makes Season 6 feel even more significant. Because every single person who is going to sit down and watch those first 6 episodes in fall 2026 is in some way part of that story. Every person who ever shared The Chosen with someone they cared about, every person who ever donated to a season's crowdfunding campaign, every person who ever left a comment or wrote a review or simply sat alone in their room and cried through an episode without telling anyone. They are all part of what made this moment possible. Dallas has said this many times, and I believe him completely when he says it. This show belongs to its audience in a way that almost nothing else in entertainment does. And when Season 6 finally arrives, that sense of collective ownership and collective anticipation is going to make the experience of watching it completely different from watching anything else. You are not going to be a passive consumer sitting in front of a screen. You are going to be a witness, and there is a very specific and very powerful feeling that comes with that word. Witness, it means you were there. It means you saw it. It means you cannot say you did not know. I also want to talk about what the trailer reveals about the visual language of Season 6, because I think it represents a significant and deliberate shift from what we have seen in previous seasons. The earlier seasons of The Chosen have a warmth to them, a golden quality in the light and the color palette that makes the world feel alive and full of possibility. And that was absolutely the right choice for those seasons because they were telling the story of a ministry in full bloom, of miracles and healings and teachings and the gathering of a community around something genuinely beautiful. But in the trailer for Season 6, that warmth begins to drain away. The colors become cooler, the shadows become deeper. The world starts to feel smaller and more closed in. And this is not accidental. This is a cinematographic choice that mirrors what is happening in the story itself. The world is closing in around Jesus. The spaces he moves through are becoming more confined, more institutional, more threatening. And the visual language of the trailer communicates all of that before a single word of dialogue is spoken. It tells you in the language of light and color and composition that something has fundamentally changed, that we have crossed a threshold from which there is no return. And that kind of visual storytelling, the kind that works on you below the level of conscious thought, is the mark of a production that is operating at the absolute top of its craft. There is also something I noticed in the trailer about the way silence is used as a dramatic tool, specifically around Jesus himself, that I find incredibly profound. And that, I